So, she can see different dimensions, different entities, look into past lives, do remote viewing. She's very, very advanced psychic. And she basically sees entities and spirits all the time, every day. She's seeing different layers, and she started telling me that there is this entity or spirit that looks like me, but looks like me 20 years older. Hey guys, this is Mike Sigula from TruthTheory.com, and welcome to another episode of True Spirituality. This is my series on esotericism, mysticism, and spirituality. And if you are new here, please subscribe, because we are going deeper and deeper into metaphysics, spirituality, mysticism, esoteric teachings. We're covering tons of different topics in different areas. So if you are someone who is interested in learning more about spirituality, metaphysics, reality, you're gonna definitely like this series. And one thing before we're gonna start, go to patreon.com/TruthTheory and consider becoming a supporter, because when you become a supporter, it helps us to create more of these videos. And you get access to exclusive episodes. You can ask me questions, you can send me topic suggestions, etc. So go to patreon.com/TruthTheory and join us there, become a supporter. And thank you to everyone who is already helping us out on Patreon. So today we're going to talk about higher self once again. So this is something that I talk about quite a lot in this series, and I've had lots of experiences with higher self. I saw reality from the level of higher self. And today I want to share with you my first conscious encounter with my higher self. So, I won't be going into what is higher self in this video. I've already made some videos on how to connect to your higher self, how to understand who or what your higher self is. So have a look at previous videos. There is also an exclusive episode on how to connect to your higher self on Patreon. So if you are on Patreon, you can check it out. So cutting long story short, what happened was that in 2012, my ex-partner, basically, I've had a relationship in 2011 till 2012. Then we separated, and something like, I don't know, year later, more or less, many months later, I think it was 2012, maybe 2013, but I think it was 2012. We didn't really talk for like a year, and then we started having conversations again. And she is very psychic, right? My ex. So, she can see different dimensions, different entities, look into past lives, do remote viewing. She's very, very advanced psychic. And she basically sees entities and spirits all the time, every day. She's seeing different layers, and she started telling me that there is this entity or spirit that looks like me, but looks like me 20 years older. So she said he wears the same kind of clothes, likes the same colors. I used to like navy blue 10 years ago. So, he looks like me, but in 20 years time, right? And she said one of the first times when he appeared was when she was actually doing exam for a method. It's called life alignment. It's like a healing method, which became her main healing method for another 10 years. So when she was doing her exams to become a qualified practitioner, he appeared, this spirit that looks like me in my 50s, let's say, like an older version of me, and was helping her, was helping her out with the exam. So it was like guiding her, giving her some tips, something like that. And she was like, who is this spirit? Like, what he wants from me, Why he looks like Mike? Why he resembles me? So I became very interested as well. Who is this entity that looks like me and is trying to help her? And like I said, you know, we're talking about someone who is very, very gifted psychically. She's a natural medium, natural psychic, has her senses developed very well. So she interacts with entities and spirits every single day, you know. They're like different densities, and she just can tune in and see them, and sometimes, you know, she tells me all these stories and things like that. So one time, couple of weeks later or something, we were at this festival. I think it's called Festival of Life, if I remember correctly. It was like this spiritual event in London, and we were sitting there on these kind of like balconies upstairs. There was like an event downstairs, and I said to her, okay, I want to know who is that entity that looks like me. Call him, and I'm gonna be asking questions, and you're gonna tell me what you see, because obviously, you know, she is the psychic one. I'm not that psychic like her. I cannot see entities or spirits. What happened was that we were sitting next to each other, and he came, he touched her arm, he touched my arm, so he was like in front of us, touching our arms. And I said, my first question was, what is the relationship between you and me? Are you some alien? This was my question. She basically said that he morphed his face into my face, so he suddenly just shifted into my face from that older version, smiled like I normally smile, you know, when someone's asking me stupid questions, and then morphed back into his old version, you know, into his normal face. So he basically showed me that he is me, you know. My second question was, can you help me with anything? And then what she saw was that he pulled a ring of keys, you know, like this ring with old keys, which I think represented like different paths, because it's all symbolic, right? So basically, like, keys can represent different doorways or different paths, and, you know, which path do you want me to help you with? This is how we interpreted that. So this was my first experience. Then over the years and later on, we started digging deeper, asking more questions, doing work. He introduced himself as Amadeus, which means something like love of God, but he explained that this is not his real name, because you know, he's a higher entity. So they basically have to create an interface for us to interact here, right? So another interesting thing is that in the Law of One, which I often talk about, it's a series of channeled books. They say something that higher self is like your future self, let's say, and it's your most advanced version from late 7th density, if I remember correctly. So basically, like, once you finish all the work incarnating, you become this ultimate version of yourself, and then you can act as guide, spirit guide, as your main guide to your previous incarnations, right? So the same way, like, you go to sleep, there is a version of you here that sleeps and channels or projects a fragment of your mind into the dream world. The same way is happening with your higher self. The higher self is like your subconscious, superconscious mind, full version of your mind that is projecting itself into the other lifetimes that is going through before it reaches its ultimate state, in a nutshell. But if you want to know more about it, have a look at my previous videos on higher self. So basically, what's interesting also is that in the Law of One, they say that higher self is late 7th density, basically like the end of the cycle. This is your ultimate incarnation, let's say. And during one of the sessions that we've done with my ex, we asked him what density he is from, you know? This is outside of Law of One. I didn't even know about this same thing from Law of One. And he said something like that, 8th density or something like that. So this is now independently confirming what the law of one also talks about, right? They talk about late 7th density because it's like 8th density is kind of, they say it's the beginning of a new one, but it's the end of the whole cycle, more or less. This is like, it's hard to really have, there is no like walls between these densities. They're just levels of frequency basically. So that's another interesting thing that we've learned about, and confirms what the law of one actually talks about, right? So very interesting. And why he appears as an older version of me. So higher self, to interact with you here, it has to create some kind of interface, right? Same way like on your computer screen you can have an icon, and that icon is not the software, it's just for you to have visual representation of the software. Same thing what higher self has to do, because at their level there is just different perception, different form, everything is very different. So to lower itself into third density, our level, it has to create some kind of an interface, right? In my case, creates an old version of me and gives me this name, which, like he explained, wasn't his real name. It's just so I can interact with him. I can call him, you know, get help, get guidance, things like that, right? Because a higher self is your main spirit guide. And I've heard other people who had interactions with their higher selves and he would appear in a different form. So for example, he could appear as the incarnation that he likes to associate himself with the most, because you have thousands of incarnations and maybe there is a group or period where, you know, it's like the ultimate or one of the more advanced, one of the more interesting ones, and he decides he gonna present himself from that type of incarnation, that level. So that's what I heard from other people, but basically this is like individual depending on the person. But this was the beginning, how I learned about higher self, how I started interacting, and over the years it evolved into constant communication, constant guidance. There's been way more. I've made a video on like when I saw reality from that level of higher self. I've done a couple of times as well with psychedelics. So that's a whole different level, you know. Here at 3D, we can interact with higher self and he can appear as a separate entity. Same way, like, you know, when you have a dream, it's your dream, but there are different people there, let's say. The same way here, at this level, higher self can appear as a separate being, for example, to interact with you, to help you, to guide you, to inspire you, to give you ideas, help you to align. So one of the things that I do is to help people to connect with their higher selves, with their spirit guides, get guidance, get aligned with their higher selves and with their soul plan, because this is really key to life, you know, fulfilling your soul plan, tuning into your higher self that knows the best outcomes for you, and it's like your intuition, your subconscious mind. It's like your personal superhero basically. So if you are on this path already and want to kind of start getting deeper and start aligning more with these things, I'm doing one-to-one coaching, so send me an email. It's coaching@truththeory.com, and we're doing like spiritual development stuff. And just send me an email, no obligation. Initial call is free of charge, so we can just have a chat and see if there is a way we can work together. So send me an email. It's coaching@truththeory.com, and I'm happy to hear your thoughts on what I just said. And if you have access to your higher self, you have this you know, conscious communication, let's say, because we all have access to our higher selves. We are aspects of our higher self. So we are like the lower fractal version of our higher self. So we are all parts of our higher selves, but not that many people have conscious connection with their higher self. They get guided I get guided in dreams in different forms. I have my system. But this is the key to unlock these abilities, to start getting more guidance from our higher selves, because that's when magic happens. That's when you start having synchronicities. That's when you start living your purpose. So if this is something you want to explore more, send me an email. It's coaching@truththeory.com, and let us know in the comments about your experiences or your ideas, your knowledge on higher self, things like that. Happy to hear what you have to say about it. And thank you for checking this episode of True Spirituality. Until next time.